with wonderful people all over this country. She is a beautiful
Guyana will become the next Dubai, and we, the citizens of Guyana, are super excited to benefit from our homeland the same way the citizens of Dubai benefit from theirs.
This is what life is like for citizens from the Emirate of Dubai.
Guyana will become the next Dubai.
with wonderful people all over this country. She is a beautiful Guyana.
A very good evening to all our viewers on Globespan24x7 as we bring you our Monday night program, New York, Guyana, in the Carolinas, and around the world. We want to thank Nohar Singh for making this platform available. And of course, tonight we have Ryan Gobin as our technical specialist. We want to thank you, our audience, for joining us tonight. And I can tell you it will be very interesting because as our guest tonight is no stranger to us, Professor Ambassador Shamir Ali. And tonight we'll be talking about the relevance of foreign policy and the role of Ambassador's High Commission in the development of Guyana. Ambassador, welcome to the program tonight.
Thank you very much, Professor Charles and Professor Euclid. It's a delight, joy, and honor to be here with you. I think this is my second time on Globespan. Thank you.
Yes, and of course, my co-host, Dr. Rose. Dr. Rose, welcome.
Thank you, Charles, and welcome to all our listeners. To let you know that we'll be doing a series on foreign policy. Hope to attain your attention in the coming week or two. Thanks.
Okay, Professor Ambassador, you have left the foreign policy 3.5 years ago. As we all know, you were recalled. You didn't complete your stint before the new government was sworn in. You were recalled by the coalition. What have you been doing since?
To be correct, my contract ended on July the 31st, 2020. I went to Kuwait at the beginning with a 3-year contract. And after being in Kuwait, we were told that the Minister of Foreign Affairs had no authority to sign the contract. So the permanent secretary had to sign the contract, and then it became a year-to-year contract. So I had a year-to-year contract, and it ended on July the 31st. What was the surprise? The contract did say about 4 months notice. I got the email on the 23rd of July for ending my service on the 31st of July. 4 days ago in Memory Lane, I signed the visa waiver agreement on August the 10th in Kuwait. And August 11, 2020, Memories was wheels up from Kuwait.
But you're correct. The minister is not authorized to sign contract. It's the permanent secretary in the ministry who really is the CEO for that ministry. And in the context of what is right and the law and policy, it is the PS. So you're saying you went as ambassador to the Middle East there with a contract signed by the minister?
Yes.
Well, that was illegal and void.
Well, how am I going to tell? I have not worked with the government, so I have no knowledge. I was learning, new kid on the block. And for that matter, because of that, my wife resigned her job 25 years at Merck, launching Fosamax and Cancidus and antifungal drugs and Move On Shaker. She was on the vice president track to be at Merck. And because of the 3 years contract, she decided to follow me, and we got the surprises, but we take it as a lesson. No regrets, not one day.
But in your experience, the other ambassadors within the coalition, and even now as we speak, in your recollection, was any of the ambassadors, high commissioner, appointed the coalition? Were those contracts signed by the minister? Are you aware of any?
I could not tell. I didn't talk. We didn't share, but I know some ambassadors did receive contracts for 3 and 5 years. I wouldn't like to call name. They're my friends. We were in touch, but some did have 3-year contracts and fine. Who signed? I could not tell.
But you haven't discussed who signed their contract. You didn't discuss that.
No, there's certain things. No.
That's okay. Ambassador, since you left the Foreign Service, what have you been doing since?
Well, assisting students with their doctoral dissertation at George Washington University. I'm assisting the AFC for 2025 on the action plan. I'm doing a weekly column on Village Voice. I'm busy with Sherrod and In the Ring commentaries. Whoever asks for my advice, I'm available. New ambassadors to Kuwait, reach out for me to do mentoring. I have my consultancy business. I'm up 3 o'clock in the mornings to cope with the 7 and 8 hours time difference in Saudi Arabia and in Kuwait and Qatar and the GCC. So I'm kept very, very busy. I've got 108 ambassadors in my back channels on many, many issues. Today was with Iran. So exceptionally busy, but I enjoy what I'm doing. And it's fun to be alive every day and to do something good in this world.
Okay. Ambassador, we had ambassador to India last week. And if you recall, we asked him when he, if he's still on the employment of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, and he said no. What I didn't ask was, is he still in the payroll of the ministry? And I want to ask you this question. When you were recalled at the end, well, when your contract came to an end in July, were you in the payroll after July?
No, sir. And I did not get even my leave allowance, the unused leave. I did not get the gratuity as per my contract. I get nothing, and that was the end of that. I just let it all go in God's name. No, never was on the payroll. Even the health allowance, you was getting everything stopped at the last paycheck.
On July 30th. Okay.
July 31st, 2020.
Okay. So in your experience, Ambassador, how long, and I'll ask you this question for a reason, how long does someone has to work in the Foreign Service to get a Government of Guyana pension?
I have no idea. It all depends whether you're employee or a contract. Because I was a contract, the gratuity was 22.5%. And they took out the regular NIS insurance. I do not pay here because I have all the facilities in the US, but I couldn't tell you, I did not know. I left Guyana in '79 and I kept in touch without having any direct knowledge of the organizational governmental services.
So you're not getting a pension because you're a contracted high commissioner?
Yes, 22.5% gratuity every 3 months for the contract that I had.
Okay. And I know you talk about a lot of back channels you have with ambassadors when you were an ambassador. Do you still have those lines open?
Yes, there's a simple reason. I was a move on shaker in the US before I went. So I knew my contract would have ended, strategic planning. So I used my global USA iPhone. I cannot believe to tell you the roaming charges, but in life, that is what you call sunk costs and cost of doing business. As a result of that, my global iPhone is still with me with over 30,000 pictures and all those ambassadors at the press of a button. And
what about head of state?
Yes, and the head of state, and this from Imran Khan before he went to jail, to the emirs, to the Qatar, to the ruling families. They're all still in my circles, especially on Thursdays before the Jummah and at Eid holidays. I'm invited to go and visit them. When my book is out, they want to launch the book in Kuwait and in Qatar and in Saudi Arabia. I met King Salman representing the president of Guyana at the summit, and I have in my circle the office of the president and the vice president and His Majesty in here.
Have you gone back to the Middle East since you left as ambassador?
I am in touch almost every day, Sunday to Sunday, by Zoom or Skype or their secured medium. Occasionally, I'm doing a report right now on why is Bill Gates selling the Warren Berkshire Hathaway stock. I happen to know both persons, and I know a lot of back channels. So I'm to give the standard they know me for is a one-page executive summary. I demystify 1,000 pages, one page, key drivers, and the rest is supporting documents. So right now I'm to submit that by tomorrow morning because, you know, they're 8 hours ahead.
I was fortunate to see a picture of young Shamir Ali in the presence of the governor of Guyana, the last governor before independence. And I saw pictures also with you, with Forbes Burnham, in meeting with officials. When last did you go back to Guyana since
my first trip after I left in March 1779 was in 2007 for cricket
no,
World
1979, Cup. Not 17.
I left 1979.
Yeah, you said 1779.
That's right. I'm sorry, March 17th, March 17th, 1979, St. Patrick's Day, I arrived in the Big Apple, New York with $500 US. His Excellency LFSB approved 500 when everybody was getting 50 to James Padmore. You remember that name at Bank of Guyana. And that was St. Patrick's Day in New York. My friend Peter Kahn said, let's go and see St. Patrick's Day parade in New York with Green Bear. He spent $300 out of my 500. So I was left the next day with $200. That was...
By 1979, 300 was like 3 million today. What did you buy with 300 bucks?
Well, beer and food, and he had friends, and you know the Green Bear, and we went from about almost 24 hours, lunch, dinners, party, and he got his friend was just pay. I had no worry because I know what I left Guyana. I know who I was, so money was just a tool. I was not afraid.
Did you go back to Guyana since the coalition came out of office?
No, I have not gone back, but I'm in touch regularly with the business people, the top movers and shakers. Regularly, they're in touch. They wake me up in the morning with all manner of information. So, no, I've not been in touch, but I'm in touch with all my circles, especially 7. And so I have 7 PPP ministers and officials in my WhatsApp. And items that concern their ministry, I will send it to them. Occasionally, I'll get a thanks back, and sometimes nothing.
So you're in touch?
I have always served all of Guyana. Party is over. I serve Guyana, election, you vote, and that's it. And the reason for that, you see, in life, we learn lessons. I was around at H.B. Gajraj and R.B. Gajraj when I saw what happened to Abdul Majid and Sons business after they supported the United Force. Within a month, that business went belly up. And I learned to keep separate tracks, politics and business. When politics is over, work with the government of the day, period. No rocket scientists. And that has been my style.
Before Dr. Rose come on, what is your view on the PPP administration for the last 3 years?
Well, they have made some blunders. They have made blunders in Kuwait. They've made blunders in Saudi Arabia. They've made blunders in Qatar. The ruling families asked me to inform them. I sent 3 letters to the president, the vice president, the minister, and the PS. There are even snafus at the Islamic Development Bank on their website. I sent it to the fleet. I didn't get any response. When the families ask me again, they tell me, please try, because in the Arab world, they use back channels. They do not come in front of you and tell you this is wrong and that is wrong. No, Islamic Development Bank knows Guyana's representation in the website is not correct. It's upsetting to them, but they will not come and tell Guyana in front of their face because Guyana is a sovereign nation. But you know the mistakes are there and it's noticeable. They asked me the question, with all the millions, how come you don't have a substantive minister like Minister Jordan was? And don't forget, they do their research. They have good people. Vice President, the President, Jack Doe, they asked for his dissertation. I said, he doesn't have a dissertation. You know, they're well educated. How can you not have a dissertation? I said, well, he did a master. He has a master thesis, an honorary doctorate. I said, that should not be on. I said, you're telling me, why don't you tell Dr. Singh when you see him? No, please pass it on, back channel. Please tell them, you know them. And that's what I get.
Dr. Rose?
Good night again, Dr. Shamir Ali, Ambassador Shamir Ali. Now, let me just pick up what my colleague asked you there and what you've said, is that the ruling families normally ask you to contact the government on certain issues. But do you think that they should ask the government directly?
I'm telling you again, it's back to the Arabic culture. I had to unlearn and relearn to be as successful I was, thanks to the Dean of Senegal. Everything has a reason. It's a completely different culture, unless you're there, you understand. And let me give you the example. When I went to Kuwait, the head of debt management asked to get debt write-off. She was trying since 2011 with Ambassador Ismail. He left in 14. Vice President or President Jack Doe sent somebody from CIOG as the Foreign Service Officer 3 in 2014 after Dr. Ismail left. I arrived in 16 and the debt management person is complaining. So I took what she said. I used my management by objective style from the USA and sent a note verbal to the Ministry of Foreign Affairs in Kuwait. No answer. Follow up, no answer. So I then asked for a meeting with the Dean of Senegal, who is in Kuwait for 30 plus years. And as I walked in, he sat me down and I told him, he says, my brother, you are my son. You please unlearn all that you come with the Western world. This is the Arab world. These people have all the money. They have all the education. They're still tribal. They operate completely different. Listen to me. Just listen to me. Go to the next meeting. Drink the tea or coffee, eat the dates, and go home. I said, but why go home? I want to ask him for my debt relief. He said, are you listening to me? I said, yes, sir. And I followed his instruction 6 times to His Highness Palace, ate the dates and drank the tea because coffee gives me a headache, and left. The 7th time, His Highness says, now come, Guyana. What can we do for you? You see, what happens is in that culture, you're being sized up. Your deportment, your stance, your dress, your authority, your rank. They talk among themselves. They share information. So when all that is done, then they're ready to see you. It has nothing to do with the note verbal. Yes, and the note verbal, it stays right there. And then after His Highness, and I told him, he says, right away, I cannot give you 100% write-off, which is $100 million. We will do something. And because so many other nations owe Kuwait, we could. We end up getting 67% write-off, 2/3, 51 million, unprecedented. Back to unlearning and relearning. And that's the reason new ambassadors are coming to me to mentor them, because they sit and wait and they get nothing done.
What you're saying that the Arab culture is completely different from the Western culture, and that's to be expected. But did you translate what they taught you there, or what the Dean of Senegal taught you, to the Abdul regime for them to know what was going on?
Euclid, I have to think before I speak. My monthly report has been comprehensive, typical of my style from the New York Stock Exchange and American Stock Exchange, 40, 50 pages. I don't think anybody cared enough to read the report. Why I say that? On your program, you had the Minister of Foreign Affairs answering your question, did not know but a $900 million from Islamic Development Bank to Guyana for 18 and 2022. Publicly, I heard him, I listened to him. He did not know. At the night, you advised that he called you to advise you, yes, it was in the report. So I don't think the report declared. I really don't think they had a policy, and there was nothing. I had little to no support, I have to be honest. There was very little. I used my own initiative and my own background to achieve what was done.
You said that you did not get your gratuity of 22.5%. Now, at the time you were terminated in July of 2020, the government changed hands in, I think it was August 2nd, 2020. I think governments tend to honor their commitment, whether it's from a different party or another party. And I think this government would have honored the agreements like that, because I don't think any government wants to rob the individuals or take anything away from individuals. Did you approach this government for your gratuity?
No, I did not. And let me tell you something else. I was told by 2 or 3 senior members of the PPP, because I was doing such a fabulous job in Kuwait, not to leave when my contract ended. And I waited and I waited, and that time came, and afterwards I packed up, had to get a container. Also, when my letter came was the Eid, and when it's Eid, people are on holidays for a week. I had to pay my staff 3 times staff to pack my container so as to be ready the first day when the services were available for the container to leave, so I can leave Kuwait fast after the 31st of July. So no, I did not approach. I did not think it was wise for me to ask for money. I'm not that type of guy. It's not about money. I went to serve Guyana in Kuwait. Those are all peanuts. I spent more than what I was paid in Kuwait to live in the lifestyle. So the government should have known what to do, and it's not my job to ask. No, I didn't.
Well, this government will not know whether you get paid or paid not. I don't think so. But if I'm correct, every year you're not supposed to get a gratuity. Did you get it in your 4th, 2nd, and 3rd year being in Kuwait as ambassador?
No, the gratuity was always in the monthly salary. It was a line item, not the end of the year. The month salary, an item was the chief accountant. The chief accountant was still there. She's the person who is responsible for all the contracts and the numbers. Even with the government change, I think she's still there. I've not kept in touch with her, but she's very, very good. And of course, she must have followed orders. So I didn't want to put her in a sticky wicket.
Since your tenure ended in Kuwait in July 31st, 2020, have you been involved in politics in Guyana?
Yes, the AFC has reached out to me for different position papers, for ideas, for suggestion. APNU has reached out to me, and anybody has reached out to me. Even some of the new parties have reached out to me. Some reach out to me for funding. And I've listened to them. I listened to their case. And yes, a lot of people have reached out to me, yes. Even just about the 28th, today is the 28th, 2 weeks ago, a top PPP person who knows my very strong connection in Washington, since I got the Republican Senatorial Medal of Freedom from President Bush I in '94, and my relationships with the Democrats and Republicans, came and asked me for help in Washington with the Reuters report. And I promptly declined because that's too hot to handle. And my back channels, there's much, much, much more that I know the government of Guyana has to know. I know the coalition government knew. There are 2 files in Guyana, and Minister Ramchatan only knew one. Second one, he didn't know at his level. So things are happening at different levels, and there are 2 files in Guyana. And on the program that I got beat up for and in the ring, quoting the one person who went to China, he's subject number 7. So if you're subject number 7, here's 6 more before, and how many more after? And I have it. I can turn right here, and it's right with me.
Okay. Now, I heard you said on more than one occasion that you're against the comprehensive closing of the 4 sugar estates. I stand corrected.
Yes, yes.
Did you advise your AFC members to tell the government or APNU, which had the majority, not to close all the sugar estates at one time?
No, when I served in Kuwait, the AFC hardly approached me. The APNU hardly approached me. Foreign Affairs hardly approached me. Before I went to Kuwait, after the heads of mission conference, I asked the Minister of Foreign Affairs for his cell number because I was going in a dangerous neighborhood and myself and wife life can be at risk. So I need to reach him at short notice if I have to do what I have to do. Minister says, you don't need to reach me. The permanent secretary speaks to me. I says, oh my God. The minister cannot get his, and I'm going to Kuwait risking my life. So that was the kind of entryway to me going to Kuwait. And I've kept in touch with the PS. The PS, I'll get acknowledgement. That's the most. That's the most. Response was none. Nobody reached out to me. No. I stayed in my corner because I was there in a Safir, as the Arabic word for ambassador, and I bat in my crease because people have very, very thin skins in Guyana, and so I tried to stay in. No, I didn't.
I just want to say this. When the government announced the closure of the estates, I communicated with the Prime Minister then, and I told him it is wrong to close the sugar estates because the estates were supporting many communities. He told me that the government is giving $10 billion a year subsidy to maintain the sugar estates and so forth, and whatever it is. But I said that money is being spent and people are paying back in taxes to the government. But the question I asked the Prime Minister at the time, I said, name me one country in the world, and I repeat that, name me one country in the world that does not subsidize agriculture.
None. I think with all due respect, the problems most government leaders make is to not have a business person on a business. That is, with all due respect to all the team, a business person who will speak the truth. I have since seen where an AFC minister submitted a plan for Gaisuku turnaround. I know Minister Noel was working, I don't want to call names of the big companies, to turn it around. I know of a Floridian on his own, I've since seen the report, to make sugar into a very specialized product, high-end market, very high, because it's unique quality. You know what the words were? Halt and wait. Which is the truth. And a lot of the ministers are afraid to talk, but I will have to speak the truth because you asked the question and you know how close I've been to AFC. So when I do, I have to stop. And these are authoritative. They're not just guests. They are authoritative. Halt and wait was the regular words to the AFC. They were literally marginalized. And Prime Minister Moses didn't do much to change it, I've learned. Because I asked that question, why didn't the PM? I said he stayed quiet. But my God.
I don't think the government had proper advisors. I don't think they had skilled researchers, because they ought to know that every country in the world subsidizes sugar. Even Israel that plants already get land. When the farmers going to plant, the Israeli government subsidizes sugar, the farmers. So somehow, Granger and his administration missed that part of it. Anyway, I want to go back to foreign policy. Now, tell us the role, tell our listeners, what are the specific roles? At least list the four most important roles of our high commissioners. And for their information, high commissioners are countries within the Commonwealth. Ambassadors are countries outside of the Commonwealth. So what are the special roles? Name me four specific roles that an high commissioner or an ambassador ought to play to represent their country.
I went to Kuwait in 2016. Guyana was independent since 1966. At least I expected a manual, a briefing book, something on Kuwait, what I'm supposed to do. I spent 1 week on the Heads of Mission Conference and I learned almost zero. So whatever I've adopted is what I've done from my own research and from reading and from writing. And as I understand, the foreign policy is for a country to use its strategies and work on relationships with countries and international organizations. And I tried to use, in the case of Kuwait, show, tell, and know Guyana, to promote investments, promote trade. I tried for wood, I tried for the coffee, and things of that nature. But I had no briefing, no training per se on those. And I can only tell you what I did, primarily to promote Guyana everywhere, 24/7.
If I'm not mistaken, I think Guyana has 14 ambassadors or high commissioners and about a little over 30 consul general offices. But do you think these consul general offices were serving the last government and this government adequately, the members who were working in those capacity?
If I took over from Kuwait and there was Ambassador Ismail and there was a Foreign Service Officer 3 who was getting paid his salary plus an acting allowance as holding the mission, and I turned up and there was nothing, I can only say to us, I don't know how well the others are. I can only talk about my experience, and I've not talked this with the other fellow ambassadors. I didn't discuss it, so I wouldn't like to volunteer, but I only tell you what I have experienced.
Under your tenure as ambassador to Kuwait, was Guyana served well?
Well, the records are proven in my 4 years tenure with a no experience in foreign affairs, 1 billion in credit and grant, and projects are there. We could not use the Islamic Development Bank 900 million US because they needed feasibility surveys. I've got OPEC, back channels, personal relationship to travel with the Islamic Development Bank to do the feasibility studies, but Guyana never follows through. They hardly follow through on opportunities. And I can only do within my sphere of command in Kuwait. All the back channels, support, scholarships, over 17 country scholarships, reports, offers are in my reports. Nothing, no response. My report with Kuwait Oil, best practices visit for the Minister of Oil, for the President, for the Minister of Foreign Affairs to come, see, and learn. They're prepared to help. The Minister of Oil says, you're my brother. I'll help whatever I need. Not even a response. So Guyana would not have been in the trouble they are in now if they listened to all the offers that are documented in my report. And I have each one. I can back each one up. It is there. And so it's a lost opportunity. Overall, I don't think they were serious about that area. Why they had an ambassador, I'm still at a loss. But I did my best and I delivered. I wished I can know another ambassador who has achieved what we achieved in Kuwait in 4 years.
What you just said, you're questioning why they had an ambassador in Kuwait? That's APNU? That's what you're questioning?
Yes, because, you know, the kind of support, there was never any money. The foreign sector is always no budget. There was no policy. There was no direction. There was no do this or this what we wanted it. So based on that, as a management by objective and a professional manager and a teacher, I have to come to that conclusion. Yes, there was no direction, none, zero.
Charles?
Ambassador, I just want to go back quickly to what you said when you started the program, that you are you're doing some work for the AFC as well. As you know, I was also supportive of the AFC. Does the AFC have a group in the US at this point?
Yes, there's a small, powerful, rich group, very, very rich. You know, Charles, and I don't have to tell you that. Extremely rich group. They're there when you need it. Yes, they're there. Their mobilization, their regrouping, they're doing their stuff. And because democracy is not perfect, so the members have a decision and it goes, yes, it's there, it's active. Okay. It's there, yes.
Mr. Harbison sent me a note to say that when he, he was a prime minister rep in Berbice.
Yes.
And he said Pepsi had indicated willingness to take over the...
Yes. That is the name I did not call from the Minister Noel. Yes, that gentleman is correct. He knows.
Why didn't that go through?
Oh, Papa San, what can I tell you? Halt and wait. I'm not in the cabinet. I'm a Safir in Kuwait.
So Pepsi wanted to help, but the government today says no.
What can I tell you? Halt and wait.
Okay.
I didn't call the name, but that name is correct.
Can you explain that, what it means to our listeners? When we say Pepsi want to help, can you explain that?
Pepsi came with a plan, from my knowledge, was to do the acreage and to transform the entire sugar estate area.
They wanted the sugar. They wanted the sugar for it. Yeah.
Sugar. And there was also another plan that I worked with different back channels for DDL to take over Lenora and then to branch off into molasses. There are a lot of balls were in the air, but I'm not at liberty to talk with too many of those because it was shared to me in confidence.
Not Lenora, I believe it was.
As well, you know, that neck of the woods.
Yeah, because Lenora had closed a long time ago. Yeah, I think DDL also indicated, even and more DDL indicated willingness to take over and more, and
Yeah.
that went up. So the coalition really did a bad job for agriculture.
Well, to be honest with you, I think we made a mistake. I know Noel very well. He's my brother from a different mother. His expertise is in computers. And there were better persons that could have, and there's something else, but you know, the fish stinks from the head. And so
Okay.
that's the leader.
Ambassador, as you know,
on agriculture, if they had picked Rajendra, I happened to met Rajendra, spoke to him, knowledgeable in Rajendra. If the AFC asked for Rajendra to be the deputy minister, but it was halt and wait.
but I was told Noel didn't want him to be there and Granger didn't approve the application.
I did not know that part. I did not know that part.
Okay. In our lifetime, and you're a little older than we are, no Secretary of State visited Guyana over the years. But however, both Secretary of State under Trump and now under Biden visited Guyana. Why?
Sticky wicket. Sticky wicket.
You want to explain?
I know a lot more because I'm in touch with the DEA, the FBI, the CA, because since '94, my rank as a Republican Senatorial Inner Circle Medal of Freedom. I followed President Reagan, Margaret Thatcher, and Charlton Heston. They got their award in '93. I got it in '94. I arrived in America in 1979, 15 years. So I have access. They reach out to me. This week, I'm doing a position paper for the Senate and the House and the White House on China in Guyana. One-page executive summary, and then I back it up with other evidence that is in the media. I take what the media reports are and my source, and I share it out. So no, I'm not at liberty to discuss this. Who knows, knows.
Okay, the president and vice president was also, I don't want to use the word summoned, but they were asked to come to Washington. Why do you think they were asked to go to Washington?
Summoned is the perfect word.
So why did they have to, why were they
Things are not-
summoned?
Guyana is located in the Western Hemisphere. Common sense. There's the Monroe Doctrine. Guyana has been a non-alignment movement country since Lyndon Forbes Sampson Burnham Esquire. The non-alignment movement is in Guyana. Suddenly, Guyana is going on a different trajectory and path. And all the other stuffs that are around necessitate that. So these things are not well.
Do you think the oil contract was discussed with them?
With whom?
With the president and the vice president?
I'm sure it does. It's standard operating practice. The power of Exxon is there all over the world. It happened in Africa. I saw it in Kuwait. I saw it in Qatar. They were there before they left, you know. So there's a power of power, yes. And they're heavily connected, yes. I also happen to know that Vincent, the vice president, President Jagdeo, asked for Dr. Vince Adams to have a meeting with the president. It was all arranged. And the day for that meeting, Dr. Vincent Adams was on the phone waiting. Exxon 2 or 3 executives turned up unannounced. The president was rushed in the room. President never attended to that call for Vince Adams. That's the power of Exxon in Guyana from my reliable back channels.
You talk about our Guyana's president or US president?
Guyana president.
Oh, okay.
Vincent Adams was to talk to the president of Guyana to serve somewhere in Guyana because of his skills. He has superior skills, left, right, and he's a professional. He is trained by the American to be a professional, politics aside. And Vice President or President Jagdo asked him to be available, and he was to talk to the president. It was all arranged. The secretary had the meeting all hooked up, and the president didn't have the direct number for. They used the University of Guyana person had contract because Dr. Vince Adams was very close to the University of Guyana administration. That's how the connection for the call was made and was shared with me in confidence. But now you ask the question, you know, so that is only to show you the power and only one small sample of Exxon.
Ambassador, there is a lingering issue that I really want to clear the air with it. Was your the problem you have with the SEC, Securities and Exchange Commission? Do you want to address that issue? Because that seems to be something that keep coming up, and I think you addressed it in the past, but can you now definitively address that issue with the SEC?
Yes, thank you so much for this opportunity. Kaicho News on September the 7th had an article that is not correct. There were 3 responses from me on September the 9th in Guyana Chronicle, September the 10th in Stabroek, and September the 12th in iNews. All 3 gave the facts.
Which year was it?
2016.
Okay.
2016, all in 16. September, all. A top Guyana attorney said on the SEC case, it was not even a misdemeanor. Used the analogy of a traffic stop violation of no consequence. I served from 79 to 1999 for 20 years at New York Stock Exchange and American Stock Exchange, UPA Technology and Porter Systems. I did 10K reports every year. I did 10Q reports. So I have that experience working in electronics manufacturing, completely different from the regular CPA. This is manufacturing accounting. This SEC civil case administration was for the years 98. I wasn't there. 99, I joined halfway. 2000, they terminate me. So out of 36 months, I was on the job as controller. The company was in existence before my arrival. I followed what was available. And so for 15 months, even the SEC, when I met the authorities in Colorado, the lady Dawn, you are the first Guyanese American who served on all 3 stock exchanges. That is the kind of experience I brought to NASDAQ. In July, I was no longer with the company, so I could not secure the documentation to prove my case. There was no court case, there was no judge, there was no conviction. It was a simple matter with a lady. And so my attorney told me to do the admission without admission of guilt and pay the fine. What I did not say in any of my previous announcements is what I'm now about to say. Aquadine needed funding. It was the time when we moving from analog to digital television. President Mancuso from New Jersey loses entire life savings to form this company. He owned 80% of the company. He didn't have the skills for digital television. So he reached out to a director from Sinclair in Maryland who has a technical expertise in digital television. Well, you know the market, all television stations in America had to change from analog to digital. Came in Fox and Sinclair provided the funding with the condition that their person, the director, who was on the board of Aquadine, I know everything about Aquadine because he's a director. He now is a super duper star with now the money from Sinclair and Fox. there was a power struggle for the presidency. And in July 2000, the new president, with the authority, because he's now installed, he brought the money, terminated myself and the chief financial officer. I do believe it was a case to get the man's company out. My July termination had no access. Every year, there is a physical count. There were 700,000 units that make in component assemblies to make up this big television unit worth millions of dollars. Year-end physical count, 10 persons with the auditors supervise the audit, certify the audit. So that becomes the cost of sales. It's one product. They're not doing 50 different products, one product. So if the cost of sales for materials is 20%, when you're doing the quarterly returns, 20% is what you use. And then in the end of the year, you do the adjustment with the physical count. That's exactly what I followed and I did. The important thing is, when I asked for the accountants to be a representation on the team for the SEC still not allowed. That is when I knew there were bigger forces. The duly elected auditors, external, audited the books at the end of the year, and you can't use their numbers, so I can tell you my cost of sale numbers are the same that they had for the end of the year. And so that was a flimsy excuse, in my opinion. I can read the exact words of the SEC regulation, but I wouldn't bore you. That sums up the entire case. And as a result of that, I couldn't pursue it. It was $200,000 or $300,000 to reconstitute the entire accounting system. It was not worth the cost. I didn't think it was worth the will. And the $10,000 fine, President Manco paid the $5,000. I paid $5,000. Cost of doing business. But the lesson I learned was evidence. You try to do good, try to help, and there are other forces. Look at Fox today. Karma is very, very, it comes. Sometimes it comes to us on earth. There were vicious forces to take that man's company away. It was so sad. So despite what you hear with who is spinning what, this is the truth. I lived it. I have no regrets. It's a learning lesson.
Thank you for clearing your Ambassador. And I think your last point is an advice to everyone watching this program, is that if you're working a sensitive area, gather information and keep it in your record, because you never know what can happen when. Thank you for that great advice. Ambassador, as you were speaking, Mr. Harbajan did send me some more information to say that it was Mr. Nan Prasad from Berbice who was the conduit with Pepsi. He was talking to Pepsi to take over the factory, and they would have kept all the workers, but it was the Minister of State and somehow the President Granger, who was apparently against that deal. I don't know the details, but that is what Mr. Harbajan is telling us.
That gentleman is certainly knowledgeable from what he said. I'd never heard that name, but I've heard of Nan Prasad's name. I know of the extensive operation. And once I was in Kuwait, that name came to my attention. So I will not dispute it, but I did not hear that name from my AFC source. But I trust what that gentleman said. He knows. Yeah,
because he was involved in a lot of the meetings.
So he knows. Okay. So respectfully.
Ambassador, you also, when you were, before you became, is it before or after? I'm not sure. You were vice chair of Go Invest.
Oh boy, yes. Go vice chair for 16 and 19. What an experience.
Okay. Now there was, as you know, there was advertisement for the CEO of Go Invest.
Yes.
And many of us applied, including myself, I think Salim Nasruddin and some others. But we were just thrown off the list. Why weren't we considered, even though we were professionals within the body politic? Well, I don't know if we didn't have friends in AFC apparently, but we were qualified, but we are not called. Why?
I served Go Invest with a perfect attendance record from Kuwait for 3 years, and it's in the minutes. Chair Patricia Bacchus, because I took that job responsibility very, very seriously. We needed a CEO. I have hired employees in my life in Kuwait from 100,000 to 300,000 US dollars. I've done interviews. I've hired people at all levels. Chair Patricia Bacchus also did the same. So we told our minister, we can handle it. We'll do all the advertising and filter top 10, and we'll do the filter, and then we'll come to him and do the rating. And we will develop a rating sheet so all will be evenly balanced. The chairman went to the minister, and minister says, no, I want it to be arm's length. Arm's length meant somebody independent had to do it, and that person was Ram and McRae. So I asked, we're struggling for monies. Where will we find the fees? And we can't even pay increased salaries to the staff and can't pay the pension contributions. And we're now going to find money for doing something that myself and the chairman can do all the vetting and put a rate system and come to a conclusion. Minister, straight as a roll, says, nope, arm's length. It has to be Ram and McRae. So Ram and McRae was the one who did all. They collected all the resumes from everybody. They did all the checks and balances. I did hear from all the names you call and some more that they applied, and it says, okay, it says arm length, Ram and McRae, make sure some received calls from Ram and McRae and some did not, and some very qualified I know. So I said, what happened? Well, I dropped a hint to the chair. Chair said, Prof, because everybody, my nickname is Prof, all over the whole world. Prof. She said, Prof, what can I tell you? He said, all right, he went through the motion. So he went through the motion, and Ram and McRae sent 9 names. I have the sheet in front of me with all my notes. 9 names, 4 categories: experience in and knowledge of, they listed. Required traits, number 2. Number 3, transforming Guyana investment trade profile, qualification experience. Each one was graded 25 points each. There were 9 names. Bobby Gosai, Dr. Thomas, Dr. Cecil R., Girwar L., Colin T., Dr. Andrew, ONV, Cork H., and Dr. Yog Mahadio. Those were the 9 names from Ram and McRae. I rated it. My number 1 was Bobby Gosai with 90 out of 100. My number 2 was Yog Mahadio, 88 out of 100. My number 3 was Dr. Thomas, 86 out of 100. My number 4 was ONV, number 4 with 85. When the points were coordinated with the chairperson and the minister, the hiring was made. That is the truth on that Go Invest. It was one of my regrets spending that kind of a money, and the persons who worked in the diaspora and had the skills could have given a job. They didn't even get the chance for an interview. That was very hurtful. When we talk so much about diaspora, we on the diaspora for this and diaspora for that. And many of you worked with AFC and gave your life and your monies and your toil. It was very hurtful. I couldn't handle it. And I'm glad that you asked the question so I can finally tell you the truth and the whole truth to the best of my ability. And the Almighty.
So in the evaluation of you and the, well, Ms. Rama McRae submitted a list of 9, and in your further interview, you had Bobby Gosai as the number 1, and then you had number 2. And
these are my ratings. I never saw the rating for the chairman. They didn't show. I'm always a smarty pants. I have nothing to fear. I sent my sheet up. I did not see their sheet. The other 2 evaluators was the chairperson and the minister. All I got was a decision at the board.
Okay. And eventually they chose Owen Faraway. How did he do as the CEO?
He did his very best. He came with, no one is perfect. He had skills. He did his best. We all tried to support him. But I felt a person with a business background Bobby got the edge because he had the oil, and we were going into oil. That's why he got the edge by 2 points. If not for business-wise, Yog was way, way ahead. But because of the oil, he got 2 points premium in my rating with that. But other the business-wide, Yog, with all due respect, was the best in the whole lot. With business background, proven business background in Guyana. And don't forget, I'm in remotely North Carolina, US, and in Kuwait, but I'm making decisions.
Yeah, I know Yog was CEO for the telephone company.
Yes.
So he had tremendous experience there too.
Yeah.
How would you compare the former CEO with the current CEO?
Well, Peter is a well-trained, experienced mover and shaker. He's well-respected in Kuwait. He served in the Gulf War. He's the only Guyanese American got 4 promotions in 1 year. He's high respected. He even has his picture and his medals up at the embassy. I know after I left, they took all the pictures out. So I don't know, he might be in a box upstairs in the attic. He's well respected. He had his head on. He has made a few missteps. I tried to offer suggestions and he said, Prof, because he's in, he always was in. I was the one who helped support him as the CEO for the AFC party and who worked with me for the action plan in 2011. So I know Peter, separate tracks. And he says the boys have it all. When the ruling families reach me to please get word to the Guyana government, I reach out to Peter one Thursday in between my dinner. Peter says he's busy, can't talk. I said, how about tomorrow? He said he's busy. Right away, you know, you can't be busy 24/7. He didn't want to. Then eventually he said, Prof, the boys have it all under control. Well, that is enough. He's doing his very good thing. The big question I ask, why is he running like a chicken with a head cut off? And what happened to the deputy Sextus, who we know, he used to be the general secretary for AFC. How come his span of control, I teach that and he knows that, their span of control, some things are falling through the cracks. It's not only announcing the agreement, it's to develop the relationships. That's where Guyana is failing. They're not spelling the relationships. Hate to say it, but it's because we're too transactional. We got to try build relationships, build trust. What I did to learn in the Gulf, that's what happened in all those Gulf countries, including Saudi Arabia. I wish all the contracts that are announced and signed come to pass. I've seen Kuwait walked away from $1 billion, $1 billion. So it's not only the signing of the contract, it's when the execution comes. Even with Islamic Development Bank, if we don't follow their rules and regulations, the money's not going to come. They have even Minister Edgel announced that they have very tight. It's unbelievable. Guyana, if we can pass the test with Islamic Development Bank, that will be a feather in a cap, and everybody is waiting to see how that will go through.
Before Dr. Rose comes on, you mentioned the word transactional. You want to explain to our audience what you mean?
Well, you do a project, you get a kickback. Feasibility surveys don't give you that opportunity. It's a whole different. You go a project, the bigger the project, bigger the kickback. Piece for you, piece for me, pay over there. The global award is 10% commission fees or agency fees, but I heard in the Guyana context, it's much more than that. I'm not there. It's all these eternal rumors, and Reuters have reported it, and you know, there are other people who have done it. For that matter, even in today, what I did not quote today is the brilliant, I have to say, the brilliant article today, the editorial on diplomacy in the Guyana Times. Everybody should read it. I give that editor, he knows, A++. He wrote, and if I can just quote what he says, a little bit of it. First and foremost, the government of the Republic, meaning Guyana, should promote and encourage national integration, not me. Guyana Times, Dr. Ramroop, promote and encourage national integration, unification of the multiracial groups without marginalization of these groups. This will significantly promote national cohesion and the unity of state. The article goes on to say, the geostrategic architecture of the Republic of Guyana needs a comprehensive overhaul. in the face of renewed interest from the United States. Venezuela, I met President Maduro in Kazakhstan. Unbelievable, what a meeting. Russia, historical ties, and indeed China. The last bit I will quote, this kaleidoscope, all this editorial today, Guyana Times, timely, of interest by global powerful nations in a small state like the Cooperative Republic of Guyana, repeat, can jolt the nation in centripetal directions and undermine the stability and development. Those are not my words. It's a Guyana Times editorial on diplomacy today.
And I think Ravi Dev is the editor of that newspaper. I'm not sure if he wrote that article.
Whosoever it is, brilliant pass.
You know, he's a brilliant writer too, yeah.
But it says the facts. It is the facts. That's the facts. There is opportunity to change. Many of us are offering suggestions, but instead of being celebrated, we are being cursed out and bombarded by Johnny come lately. Many of us make sacrifices and continue to do. When we make these suggestions, it's for improvement. All you have to do is to change. When you're a president, you have to have training on etiquette, how you stand, how you walk, how you talk. It's not only wearing the clothes, cheering the clothes. It's a thing. I saw 7 persons send me a picture, which I only shared with one person in Guyana, asked him to use his back channels and get to the first family because it's not good. This is what it is. People are watching, they're observing. Even that person says, oh my God, I'm not sure how they will reply. We said, you have the best chance. Bring it to their attention, so they know, do not do that, because our body is built differently. Nobody can do everything everybody wants. Certain things, certain people cannot do and should not do. I won't say anything more. So those are some of my experiences. When I talk about the president and man spreading, it came from my China back channel. They sent me the picture. I have high back channel in China. If you visit my website, you'll see. So they're sharing these things with me. People share stuff with me and they ask me, why, they tell me, you know, I get the abusing. Why don't you alert your president? I get the beat up. It's not being negative. They tell me, Prof, you know better. Please drop a hint. Drop a hint to them. When I drop a hint, I get slaughtered and Globespan by Johnny come lately. But don't worry with them. I will do my stuff and I'll work and Multi will give their thanks. And
yeah, there was some negative feedback with the emancipation dinner that the president hosted, and the way the president danced, I say it was like a kangaroo dance, and people were laughing at it, which I think for head of state, yeah, the deportment and the way the president carried himself, I think that speaks a lot.
I tell you, that was seen in Saudi Arabia. It was seen in Qatar. It was seen in Kuwait. It was seen in Oman. It was seen in the Saudi royal family in Peru. I can go on and on. People are reading the web. Guyana is important with the oil. They have fully paid staff are surfing the web. And because they're in contact, they ask me, is this true or is it fake? That's what is coming now. Is this true or is it fake? Because, you know, with chat block and AI, everything says that event did happen, so that is an event. The event I sent with this one person to bring to the first family is an item that happened at State House, and that is not a fake. That was the last one I dealt with yesterday.
Dr. Rose?
Trying to help.
Let me just say this though, Ambassador Ali, and to you, Charles. I think we're living in a modern world. I think traditionally, the families in Kuwait are traditional people, and you find most of the leaders are traditional. I think the president dancing symbolizes that this is the youth of Guyana, and there's something new. It is not derogatory. I support the president coming out there and dancing with the people and everything else, and this is what president's supposed to do, intermingle. But if you're going to tell me that the president and dances or whatever it is, Kwame Nkrumah used to dance. Kwame Nkrumah danced with the Queen in 1957. You had Sir Abubakar Tofir dance with I think the Princess of Monaco way back when. So this is not something new. But I'm saying, as much as the Muslim culture is different, they are traditionalist people. They seem to sit back and don't say much at all. But that's their culture, that's their lifestyle. Uh, Western leaders, most of them are traditional. So I compliment President Ali for coming out there and dancing with the people. We are living in a modern world, 21st century. President Ali is young. Is a Guyana's a young generation. 66% are below 40 years old. So he has to mingle with the people to show that whatever they're doing, he is there with them. So I wouldn't criticize the president for dancing with a group of all this nonsense. It's just the traditionalist, I think, will say that. So that's my comment on that. So everybody does something differently. And I think he's showed support to the younger people that he's there with them because he's the leader of the country. And I can tell you this, President Shamir. Before I get back to President Ali, I want to ask you this. From your discussion here tonight, you're telling us that the Granger administration is highly incompetent on a number of issues. But you being a senior member of the AFC, I think an executive member as well, did you complain to the members of the AFC, Prime Minister Nagamoto, Minister of Public Security Ramjatan and Policy and them, that they should take a more active role in directing Granger as to what to do, and if Granger refuses, then they should pull out? Or as it happened, they sunk with him. Did you tell these leaders that in the AFC?
No, I did not, and I cannot be the one to give a rating on President David Arthur Granger. He appointed me to Kuwait, so I have to be respectful. I was never an NEC elected member. I was always co-opted either for my money or my skills. It is Doc Somar in New Jersey. When I visit his palace in New Jersey, asked me to help AFC. He's the one who got me to be helpful to AFC. No, I did not, because I did not know I could have taken the Ministry of Foreign Affairs items on to discuss with third parties. I did not discuss with anyone. Even the reports that they were invited to come to Kuwait for site visits, to have familiarization visit, it went through the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. Only once did I send it to Minister Trotman because I got pissed, and once I sent it to Minister Patterson for the Kuwait Aviation Show, and I had no response from either of the ministers, so I chose not to send again. No, so my comments were not, and I didn't think it was right and proper for me to go out of my lane, because I'm the ambassador representing the president and the country in Kuwait, and my chain of command is the PS and the minister, and I do that in my report. My stops were in my reports. I didn't do any other channels. Now, looking back, I wish I had taken the leadership and run the risk of being terminated, but maybe they all would have been changed, and maybe they all would have been inside looking out. But that's hindsight. But there were ideas. There were ideas and there were suggestions. There were. It was not. But maybe one person had supreme influence, and it muddled. But one of these days, time will tell. The world will be wiser. But I cannot give a rating or tell the government a failure. I'm not qualified to do that. I saw only a small niche in Kuwait. I can tell you from that responsibility, and I give a rating for that. But the others, I do not know. I'm sure certainly they've done good in their term of office. They've got to be respectful.
Let me ask you this question, and I normally don't bring this up. After the election results were announced on, I think was March 3rd or 4th, and the Granger administration prolonged this to challenge the results in court and all sort of thing, and they did not present a statement of polls. What were you saying to yourself during that period of time?
I was around since the Union Jack was lowered and the golden arrowhead raised. And with all respect, I was taught, and many like me were taught, to cook elections. UF was taught, PPP was taught, AFC was taught, APN was taught. No election in Guyana has ever been perfect. They are shenanigans. Dead people voting, it all depends on the magnitude. Last two governments with 1 seat majority, 5, 6, 7,000. That alone tells you, don't have to be rocket scientists. All have. The question is, how bad is the deficiency? How great is the missing polling numbers? And I can tell you, it's not only that. President Granger earned the wrath of President Trump. And those who know, I know of 3 items, and I'm told much more than that. And that was the reason the coalition government was. There was also a plan what to do, but that plan was not carried through. I happen to have knowledge. So there is a lot of mortar in the pestle, and those who knows. Mia Motley knows. President Granger and one other from PNC was trained by Washington. President Ali and another was trained by Washington. 2 AFC persons were trained by Washington. When they look around among the 6 to replace President Granger, Ali was chosen because he was trained by them. I wouldn't be able to say anything more. I've said enough. So there are other forces are at play. It's not only election results. And if that is so, it's 3 years now. Nigeria and other countries have election petition results within a week or a month. 3 years and it cannot come. I'm asked that up to today, the 3-year anniversary, what happened to the election petition? I tell me it's in the freezer. That's an indication. Why the judge not appointed? Both coalition government, they've got the judges hanging. Democracy, look what happened to Pakistan. Look what happened to Niger. The justice system works for all. No party, and that will hold us accountable. What I just want to say, when I served Guyana in Kuwait, I served all Guyana. 3 high PPP persons asked for my support. One wanted to be the UAE Consul General in Guyana because they know I have strong back channels with them since in Kazakhstan. And that person wanted consulting jobs. I sent my strong recommendation to UAE for them to do their due diligence. They did not tell me. When I asked them in the Arab culture, they just smiled, they don't answer. You have to read between the lines. I sent to Islamic Development Bank that person's CV, a high PPP official, back channels, separate tracks to the Islamic Development Bank, and they were going to favorably consider him. They didn't tell me what happened. Another one wanted a Saudi investment. I supported it. Saudi asked me one question, Brother Shamir, are you involved in that project? I said, no, they didn't ask me. I'm only facilitating. If you have interest, I'll link you up and you take it from there. They said, no, we're not interested. If you're not there, who's going to watch our money miles away? So that was the one. Another one for the Kuwait Fund for Development, 1.6 million for the East Coast Road, one high PP person, Prof. That's too small. It should be 3 million or 5. I said, well, those are the numbers came from Guyana with details. All right, I will go. I went to the masjid. In Kuwait and the Arab world, most of the work unknown to the Western world is done at the masjid, not in the offices. That's where the relationships are maintained and the meetings are held at the high levels at the masjid. So I went to the masjid on Friday, Jummah, talked to the minister. The minister said, brother, it's already approved all the levels. We can't change it now, but let's see what happens as things go on, and we'll try put in the 1.5 million for the next contract. So those are some of the kind of work I have done for the PPP without knowing.
I have a question here for you. It's a question that will tell you something.
Mm-hmm.
Now, President Ali's current rating, and this based on polls, is at 64%. It is the highest the country has ever seen since Jagan became president in 1992. He was at 57%. But President Ali is the highest. What do you think of President Ali's leadership?
I am finally remote because I know of shortcomings in Kuwait that he has interest in and he did nothing. Because I know he messed up with friends, families, and favors in Qatar. And if you look at the picture, you normally have the president picture, the prime minister picture, and the minister of foreign affairs. In Qatar, the minister of foreign affairs does not exist at the launch of that embassy. That foreign service, 3 officers served under me in Kuwait. You normally do an annual rating. Guyana only sent me 1 annual rating because he was not up to par. He need more training. It's documented in my report. Somehow Guyana didn't like it and he was promoted to. Qatar is aware of that on the back channel from the ruling family. I saw them in Washington. I will see them before the end of the year. They want me in Qatar, personal tracks. So I will barely give him, with all due respect, and I can go on and on, for him to take a person who's on the DEA list and the Homeland Security active list into China. I can't give a good rating, and there's much more I know. So it's tough to give him a high rating. And I'm very tough at writing because A means you have to earn it, means perfection. It's not a makeup. I do not give makeup. Because if I give makeup for one, I have to give makeup for everybody in the class. So I'll have to say he is the most active. I call it Project a Day. I used to do that in the Lions Club, where I got the top club award in International Club a Day, Project a Day. With the substance, with half of the persons feel marginalized, the poor are crying out. I'm hearing it. Every day I'm getting a phone call. They need help. There's no food. I hear it from the AFC program, the Saturday program. So how can I give? They talk about the one-sided Guyana. I listened to 2 speeches on the last Sunday at Kucho Labor College. Anybody listening to that want to know if that is the same Guyana? So it's tough for me to give a high rating. I will say it's a work in progress. He's working, he's active, but it's not activity. It's not the deeds, it's the words, it's the deeds. Res non-verbal. It's not the spin doctors. I call them Dr. Goebbels propaganda 1, 2, 3, 4. High price, high paid, singing for the soup. They're getting the appointments. Look, the speaker of the assembly from the party with 1 member, opposition marginalized. Natural resource fund, opposition is picked by the government. When I was going west, Minister Gaskin every month will call for the opposition representative on investment board. Ramesh Prasad eventually came. None of that is happening now. So how can I give a high rating?
But in all due fairness to the government, it is not the opposition that has kept themselves out. I think President Ali has invited Mr. Norton many times in his turning request. And you know for a fact that he's even refused to shake President Ali's hand, which I think is unstatesmanlike. You can't blame the government for that. You got to blame the opposition, do you think?
Yeah, I saw the picture. I do not know all the details, but you know, it all depends on your training. Sir Donald Jackson, Raman Bacchus Gadraj, the Lacus taught me differently. I would not have done that. I would have done separate tracks that go through the protocol of respect. There must have been anger in the body language that I saw and read. That's why it was not shaped. I do not have the details. I was not there. And you know, sometimes our inner self comes up more. Look how long it took for me, since 2016 to now today in 2023 to speak what was not explained before. So everything has a time and place, and there's a reason in the universe. So I do not know the thing, but I would not have done that. I reach out. President Ali is in here. He never responds, but he's in here. I send a message, whether he reads it or anybody is in there. VP is in here. 7 ministers are in here. So
whether one is upset with the government or upset what it is, he or she has to do the greater good for the community. And APNU represent a large section of the population. And even if the opposition leader is upset over whatever it is, that's his personal views. But he should be there to represent the views of the people that voted for him. And I don't think he's doing that. And everybody knows he's not doing that. Because when you're going to tell me that you refuse to shake the president's hand because of whatever reasons or reasons you believe in, then I'm saying you ought not to be the leader of the opposition, because it's highly unstatesmanlike. I've never seen that happen. And that proves to me that something is drastically wrong. But having said that, my question to you is the next question to you is this: what do you think of Guyana's foreign policy today?
I've never seen it, don't know what it is. I'll say transactional. There's no foreign policy. China is one that is glaring. We're making some serious, we've had a non-alignment policy. I know the US is very, very unhappy, and they will be seeing meetings, they'll be summoning, and new ambassador is coming. They're not pleased at all. The House, the Senate are having closed door meetings. Guyana is getting too close to China. So I do not know, nobody has shared the policy. I speed reading a lot of stuff from 12:05 in the morning. I get the Kaiecho News. By 6 p.m. I got Stabrook News and the others. So I speed read all that comes. I do not know what the foreign policy is. But if I'm to give, if the King Salman is to call me now, or MBS, say, Brother Shamir, what rating do you give them? I said, well, they're transactional. There's a lot of transaction, a lot of activities. And where there's projects, a lot of projects a day, we don't have the skills to do it. So it's tough for me to give that rating. I don't have access to information. Minister Todd, I've never heard him say anything either. Somebody said he's a fifth wheel and a four-wheel coach. Somebody in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, my background, said he doesn't know what he's doing. He's not, there's another lady who is the boss of Foreign Affairs. And, you know, I get all of that. I get all of that. So it's tough for me to say it when I have privileged information I don't know what it is. And I did not know what it was under APNO either. I didn't know. I wish I'd known what was expected of me in Kuwait. It would have helped me to do more than I did. But I know if I could have done more, and it'll all be in my book. My book is coming out. It'll be there. I've set a record straight so that others will learn and others will do better. I want, as a good professor, want students to be better. I don't want my students to fail. I want them to succeed because they didn't have the skills. I'm supposed to pass on, so I'll be blessed. So my book will spell out in details of successes, so others will come after me and do much, much faster. I know we've made a very, very bad blunder in Kuwait by sending a person who's not a Muslim. That's a Muslim country. You couldn't insult them more. Guyana knew better. You had Dr. Ishmael, and you had a Muslim person out of CIOG. Well, they did not carry that pattern and their view. That means that Guyana is marginalized. Most of the stuffs, the connections are made at the masjid. Guyana representative, charge of affairs, have to be back of the line because by rank, the ambassadors and the more senior who was there before, Guyana is at the back of the line. You know what Guyana will be doing? Meeting all the ladies groups, sipping tea and coffee and looking at fashion show. After all the coalition did in Guyana to lift, that is what is happening in Kuwait. And I'm hearing it daily.
Was Dr. Ishmael a Muslim?
Yes. And he attended the mosque and he told me the truth. I was in touch with him before and I have a couple of regrets. One, I didn't listen to him enough. I flouted one rule and I paid the price. He told me, don't take the instructions from the embassy on the house. You go live in a hotel, then choose it. I chose to be bamboozled by the FSO who the President Jagdeo sent from CIAG2. I took his advice because the building was closest to the embassy. Oh my God, it was 1 year of a nightmare in a building. Eventually I fed up, I documented, showed, tell and know in a binder, went to the Foreign Affairs with my wife, with a thing it, and all they did, look at the first page and they arranged a new house. That house was not even fit for anybody to live in. There's a plaque which says if it's authorized. I did not know all of that. I learned later on that that house after I left never had the plaque. That's why, and that's the kind of a reception I had on my arrival in Kuwait.
I just want to make an observation, and I will ask you to comment on it fast before my colleague comes on. Now, in Guyana, I noticed that when it comes to India, we always send an Indian. To Africa, we send a black person to the embassies or whatever in Africa. To Europe, we send, I don't know, anybody. But America's ambassadors in Kuwait and these countries, are they Muslims?
Some are not, and they're marginalized. There was only one exception. And the reason is America goes with the power. In Kuwait, America is loved because President George Bush, the one who gave me the Medal of Freedom, is respected. But he misses the opportunity by not being able to go to the masjid, not to go to the palace greeting where it's for Muslims. That's all I'm saying. You're missing out on the edge. America has a premium. Canada sends a lady, but they're at a disadvantage because nobody's selling them and they don't even know. But I'm sharing it with you. It'll be in my book.
My question is this. If you're saying that we should send a Muslim to the Middle East, send an Indian to India, send a black to Africa, America send whites to India, America send the Western European countries, they don't send Muslims to the Middle East, they send the white people there. So how they are being recognized and accepted and Guyana can't do the same?
Because they're America and you're Guyana. You now become with the wealth. You're not. I'm just sharing to you that I know the missteps. The ball is in the government court. That's all. All that is good. And I'm telling you why. Common sense. You don't have access to the masjid. You're at a disadvantage. When it's Eid, you're not there. All the others are there. Relationships are formed, is being maintained. That's all I'm saying. I'm not saying they're not qualified. All I'm saying to have a representative who don't have to have the maximum access so you can get the maximum return. If I was not a Muslim, I couldn't do what I did. It's my relationship engineered and the authority of the Minister of Finance.
I understood that.
Make it.
So you're saying that Canada and the Western nation, United States, because of their power, they can send anybody there.
Yes.
Okay.
With all
Okay,
due respect,
Ambassador,
yeah.
we're running out of time now, but quickly, if you had the opportunity to make a recommendation, whether to the coalition or to the current government now, what should our foreign policy be, in your view?
Non-alignment movement, friends of all, get everybody involved, do feasibility studies, open to the public, get inputs, get ideas, get the experts, not friends, families, and favorites, your own clique. No, get independent. The Singapore model is a good example. The Norwegian model is a good example. The Qatar model is a good example. And it's doable and it's done. And above all, I think very soon from Washington, is my prediction and duas, that there will be guided democracy from Washington for a national government, shared governance with APNU and AFC, PPP, and civil society. 2/5, 2/5, 1/5. I was asked my opinion and I've shared it. And I also know that Exxon royalties will be greater than what it is. That 2% will be another number. And I was also told that others have given the same number I gave. I says, well, we all drinking the same Kool-Aid. And I know it will. But it will have to be with a national government, the kind of government that editorial is talking about in the iNews today. But it's coming. It is coming. I know it's coming. Don't know the time, the place, but it's in the works. That is, and you know what? It was there before. It was there in 2020. It was there before, ever since. It's not something new, but the will. What's the kind of context? No one party can rule. Third party will come, whether it's AFC or a combination of new parties, and that will be another option because there's nothing in the Guyana Constitution will allow any other stuff. So the third party will be another way of holding checks and balances. But Washington is seriously considering, from my back channel sources, unity government, shared governance with civil society. Civil society has to be a part rather than just the party politics, which in effect has really failed us. Our race relations are not doing too well, despite what all says, the man in the street. And not only that, another thing is happening. The boarded up homes around the country, the line for the visas, the exit. So the next election, a good purified voters list will be a test. And Washington will be involved.
We're running out of time, Ambassador. We have to come to the end of program time, but I know the opposition leader will be in New York the end of this month, and it's publicized he's coming to Richmond Hill to meet with the Guyanese Indian community. What should he expect coming to Richmond Hill?
What I can tell you, expect Richmond Hill will have the placards, he'll have the protests, and he's a street smarts guy. I'm told he was the best general secretary in the history of the PNC under President Hoyt. And these are reliable people who knows. So he has different skills. I know he did a good impression to present a dossier to the Secretary of State, and that report was read point to point, and questions that were sent to the embassy in Georgetown for clarification, because, you know, embassies send one report and various reasons, some things are not there. So he has made a big, for that matter, he had made a big, in my words, leap forward with the Secretary of State meeting, and they're watching now a little bit more carefully. And now the new ambassador is on board, coming on soon. So things will take a own. He has an edge. He has made strides.
Ambassador, we want to thank you for your time. We're really out of time now, but we want to thank you for your forthrightness. And there's some people who think that you're not speaking the truth, and you'll always have that something that you hate the government. And as Dr. Rose mentioned, President Ali's popularity has really skyrocketed. But I think, as you said, maybe the Guyana need a united government. How will that happen? You just give some tipping points there that what is likely to happen. We want to thank you again. Anything in closing, Ambassador?
Just as said, I have given enough evidence with what I have done in ideas and suggestion to offer. So the point of saying I'm anti-government, I'm not anti-government. I'm pro-Guyana for a Guyana for all. That was my training from Sir Donald Jackson, R.B. Gadrudge, and the Locos. And so that is not a statement. I've given enough evidence today. And if you want, I can bring more evidence on it to support that I have tried to make things better with ideas and suggestion. But if others feel differently, that's their opinion, they're to it. But I will continue to do my best for all in Guyana, irrespective of the party.
And thank you for taking the time to be with us. Dr. Rose, anything in closing?
I'm just looking at TV here. The Fulton Court County has just presented findings to the judge in Fulton County Court, and Trump has been indicted. Trump and several others have been indicted, but that's coming up later. Yes, I will still call for the pension, the retirement age to be increased from 55 to 62. I will call for public servants to be given a salary of at least about $20,000 a month, as you said, Charles. And what I will also ask everyone is to join and support President Ali's One Guyana initiative. It is something good. It might not be what you like, but to promote Guyana as unite the country, we need that unity in order to go forward. And we should all support his One Guyana initiative. Those are my 3 comments tonight. And I also want to give a big shout out to all my friends of the quarantine for doing a fantastic job in celebrating emancipation. I have a group up there called the Macedonian Japa Voluntary Committee, and the executives and subcommittee members did a great job in celebration. We fed almost 2,000 people of the quarantine, and it was a fantastic thing to do for emancipation. Thank everyone here.
So well done to your team, and to all Guyana. I hope they had a great Emancipation Day. So again, to you, Dr. Ambassador, we want to thank you for being here. Dr. Rose, to our audience, thank you so much. Until the next time, God bless our great country of Guyana. Thank you.